Welcome into Missing the Point, part of the Electricast network, specifically brought to you by the Winner's Edge podcast network. We're so excited to be a part of Winner's Edge because we're all winners around here because we control the narrative. So whatever happens,
We win.
We win. We decide. Thank you so much for tuning in, downloading, pressing play, waiting for your last podcast to end, and you happen to just have this one next up. To the Power Ranking Show. I love doing this show. We've only got a few weeks left to talk about who the best 10 teams in the NFL are. What was so great about this season, I think, is that the power rankings were ever shifting, and that's not just because Bobby's medication was changing. It's because the NFL.
Well, that's true, but
also true. But it's because the NFL was there was a lot of parity, like we said, which I think is the goal of this league. I think they're trying for parity every year. Which they should probably introduce a lottery system in their draft, but that's a whole other conversation. But I think it's been a really fun season. We've learned a lot about a lot of different teams. We've really nailed down the format of this show to make it a lot of fun to produce and a lot of fun to listen to. I'd like to think, and me and Bobby just have one very special guest this week, a member of this parish of this podcast. We have Mike Marcangelo, who we haven't seen on the Power Ranking Show in a good few weeks. I think you've done this season though, right, Mike? You've been here for at least one.
I think three.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a little bit of a blur for me because when you do this every week, it starts to feel like a 9 to 5.
it's been a while though. I think the last one you were on was like week 5, right? Week 6.
Yeah, you were just coming to grips with the fact that I was right about the Cowboys.
That's right. I remember now. Yeah. It's all coming back to me. Well, we're glad to have you back. I mean, this is a fun 3-man tandem. A lot has happened since you were last on the show. And Bobby's power rankings are a little. They're fun. they've got something to say. But Bobby, before we get into all that, I think we should do what's probably going to be the last round, if I'm not mistaken, of cross-offs. I think we're going to get rid of basically everybody that we haven't already, if I'm not mistaken. But remind me as we go through cross-offs being like they're either mathematically out of the playoffs or they're so bad that they're irrelevant, even if they are game-winning teams. If they do have enough of a record to stay in the playoffs after this week, we should still be crossing them off at this point because I think we know what we need to know about teams. So let's just go through. I usually go south to east of both conferences. So let's just do that. So the Texans we already crossed off. The Colts we already crossed off. The Jags we actually kept alive last week, Bobby, I think.
Yeah.
Because we had one dissenter. And now they have one more win, which I did predict over the Titans. So are we going to leave the Jags and the Titans to fight it out for the AFC South, or what do you think?
I mean, I think we have to, right? I mean, you look at the Titans now. The Titans are in a bit of a free fall.
Derrick Henry's minutes added up, like we always say. That's what happens.
So I think we got to keep them just because of the youth and the youngness of the Jaguars. And they look, man, you like that? I'd say
and the youngness.
Yeah, right. So basically, they're old.
Trevor Lawrence looked amazing, though. I got to say, he was unreal this past week.
He might be the real deal. I'm really glad we didn't cross him off. I wanted to, and either Joe or Ray talked me out of it. So thanks for that, guys. Mike, are we going to see possibly the Titans drop out at number 1? Is there time for the Titans to drop out at number 1 in the AFC South? Or the Jaguars going to win that division?
I mean, there's definitely time, and the fact that the Jaguars are now 5-8, and the Titans don't look like they know what to do on offense. I thought that in the first quarter of that game, I think Derrick Henry had 98 yards rushing, and then he had 119 yards rushing in the first half. He had 2 yards rushing in the second half. So like they adjusted. Trevor Lawrence looked like really good, and Evan Ingram looked the tight end, and he looked like back in New York all those years ago. So
he had the day of the season, I think, right? Like he went for bananas.
Yeah. 11 for 160 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's what you want out of a tight end.
You got to say too. I mean, if the Titans fall behind, they're screwed. They're done.
Yeah. I think what it is it looks to me like a well-coached team, and I do think Vrabel is a good coach. I have asked myself the question, like, am I a little bit informed by the bias of like growing up in New England, even though I'm not a Patriots fan? Like I always liked Mike Vrabel. He's a very likable personality in the NFL, and I think he's a very likable coach. But I actually do think he puts together a good team. There's just clear personnel deficiencies in the Titans. We've been talking about it all season. It makes it hard to get excited about them past Derrick Henry's first 6 weeks. And I think as much as he's like an unbelievable alien of a player, like, and he can do no wrong when he's on in his day, I think it's really difficult to watch the Titans not have anything else other than Derrick Henry. It makes it
right.
As much as I want to say Mike Vrabel's a good coach, and I want to believe he's a good coach, it's not as if he has to like do a lot other than shoot the biggest cannon on the field most of the time. So until the like Tannehill, that rotating cast of characters becomes solidified, their defense is more consistent throughout the season. I don't have much to say or care about the Tennessee Titans. I think we were right about them. We've said the whole season that, they're not going to be a factor come around. Oh, I don't know. Fucking the week of December,
right now,
December, like 11th or 12th. So, it was a foregone conclusion.
It's also, you have to look no further than the fact that a team that's first in the division, they fire their GM.
Yeah.
Not a good look. Not a good look.
Right. Like, but clearly something's not fucking right.
Well, right behind the scenes.
And you think about too the timing of that right after that Eagles game where they saw AJ Brown go off. Like the owner saw that and was like, "This is the offense that you left us with, and this is the guy you traded. Are you out of your mind? You're out. See you later."
Yeah. There's definitely there's some dysfunction going on behind the scenes. I think Vrabel's exactly the kind of guy that would like shields the public from that dysfunction too. Like I don't think he doesn't have loose lips. He comes from a place of keeping your shit together. I.e. the 2001 plus Patriots. You remember when who was it that which Steeler was it that played towards the end of his career?
Harrison.
James Harrison.
Yeah. And James Harrison played in New England. He was like, I don't know, man. Like they don't let you say shit around here. It's like they make you keep your mouth shut. And it was sort of level as a criticism of the Steelers, which, I don't know. I mean, the Antonio Browns of the world in that locker room, it's hard to keep a lid on. But I think Vrabel comes from that culture, and I think you're not going to hear shit as long as he's the head coach. And I do like him. But yeah, the Titans don't really mean anything. And there's a ton of arm talent in Trevor Lawrence. Like he's all arm talent. And I don't think it doesn't matter which quarterback you have coming out fresh from college, having to deal with Urban Meyer and fucking Jacksonville. Like, I just don't think that they're going to look that good. So we can give him a pass, I think, on his first year. Judge him on this year, say that there's positive signs, and like maybe we'll be talking about him in the power rankings next year, but that's not this show. So nobody from the AFC South is fucking crossed off there. That's great. We already, nobody knew. We already crossed off the Steelers. We already crossed off the Browns. And we were right. We were right about the putrid Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Admittedly, they are banged up. Lamar Jackson's not in there, so you can't really judge them completely. But we did have a sneaking suspicion that they were sort of frauds. And their record is a little pumped up. And with the Bengals moving the way that they are, Mike, same question. The Bengals are winning this division now, right? I mean, that's just going to happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And with everything that's going on with Lamar and then Huntley getting banged up as a backup. I mean, Harbaugh is a great coach, but the Ravens have always been predicated on a great defense. Their defense is fucking trash this year.
It's bad.
It's real bad. And, they're a situation in that division where the Bengals are getting better and healthier, and they're getting worse and injury prone. So
yeah, are we gonna cross the Ravens off?
If I get a vote in this, I would cross the Ravens off.
I mean, if we're talking Super Bowl, if you're talking Super Bowl, we can cross them off on that because there's no goddamn chance they're getting to the Super Bowl. But they're going to the playoffs at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that if we want to litigate the definition of a cross off, they're not championship contenders anymore, right? Like I think they were for 7 weeks. Like you could make an argument, but now I would have a lot of trouble with somebody trying to make it. And it doesn't sound like anyone in this show is going to do it, but I'd have a lot of trouble with someone trying to make an argument that the Baltimore Ravens are championship material.
Yeah, you know my opinion on them, man. They're putrid. They had to pull out a last second win against. I mean, I guess the Broncos kind of woke up this week, but that week they were awful, and they almost lost the goddamn Broncos, man. Like you can't be a championship contending team and win 10-9 against the worst goddamn offensive football team I've seen so far this season. So
yeah, it's bad. It's especially bad because it's the Broncos, and like they might not be the actual like on paper worst team, but like man,
they're close.
Well, it wasn't even
close.
the Broncos playing up and getting up to play the Ravens. You know what I mean? It was just two dog shit teams.
Just a bad product, which is actually this season, especially pretty rare. I feel like we've had a lot of good games brought to us by on paper bad teams. Let's okay, we're crossing the Ravens off. Fuck it. We're crossing them off. I don't even give a shit anymore. Lamar Jackson deserves better. I think at this point, I don't want to relitigate the conversation at the start of next season about how he doesn't have the arm talent, blah, 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 blah. He's had one of the best seasons of his career. He's gone from good to better every single season. They have clearly not put the right personnel around him, especially his defense. He'd have 2 more wins like that you can cite directly if his defense was in any way good, and then it put him at 11 wins, right? So I just don't buy it. I don't buy the idea of Lamar Jackson being at fault for this. I think that there's just a lot of personnel holes around the way. So yes, great. We've crossed the Ravens off. What a turn up for the books that is. We crossed the 9-4 team off here in this week in December. That's great. I love that we did that. We're Billy Big Balls here on missing the point. All right. Broncos are crossed off. Obviously, we already crossed off the Raiders. Nothing we can do about that. Embarrassing fucking showing from them. Let Baker Mayfield.
That's absurd. So far this season, Josh McDaniels has lost to a coach who has coached 2 games in his entire career and was a center most of his career. And now he was a center 2 years ago, not most of his career, his whole career. And then now has lost to Baker Mayfield, who was cut 3 days before that game. They brought him in 3 days before the game, and he beat the Raiders.
He knew like 3 plays.
That's absurd.
A 14-point fourth quarter comeback.
The thing is it showed. It's not as if he came in there and like we did a show, Bob, me and you. I think it was the Power Ranking show last week, and then we like signed off on our computers, closed our laptops, trotted into our little living rooms with our little wives and girlfriends, and threw on the end of the fucking Raiders Rams game. And Baker Mayfield was there, stunting on him and looking like, I mean, he dropped the ball at one point. He went the wrong direction for a handoff at one point, but he got the job done. And I don't think that's because Baker Mayfield was an unbelievable quarterback that we didn't know this whole time. I think it's because the Raiders are alarmingly bad, hilariously bad. And I think that Josh McDaniels was getting propped up by a much better head coach his whole career. And I think you've taken 2 punts on him now as a head coach. And I think we can all call it a day on. Sorry, Josh. I'm sure you've got a nice nest egg to retire on, but yeah, no. I'm not crossing out the churches because they're looking like themselves all of a sudden, if you ask me. And I think that finally it's taken weeks and weeks for them to look like how I thought they would look. As you know, I had an early call for Herbert to be the MVP. He looked every bit that this week, if you ask me. If he played like that every week, then he would have an MVP call. Obviously, he doesn't now. They've been beat up and injured, but I'm not making that excuse. I just think that the coaching over there could use a little bit of improvement. I think when Herbert plays Herbert's game, I think he looks unbelievable. There's no way I'm crossing the Chargers off. I think they could sneak in for a wild card game at least. They could sneak into the playoffs and do something. So unless anyone wants me to cross the Chargers off, I'm not doing it. I'm actually a little mad they didn't make 10th on the power rankings, to be quite honest with you. But I understand why you did what you did. Obviously the Chiefs, no, because we're going to talk about them later. The Jets. Last week, I was convinced the Jets were making the playoffs. But now when you look at the AFC East, Bills 10 wins, Dolphins 8 wins, Patriots 7 wins, Jets 7 wins. Like we've talked about the Jets like they were the fucking second coming on this show because of like good coaching, really fun defensive players. And we've talked about the Patriots like they're yesterday's news. They have the same amount of fucking wins, Bob. So like the Jets are annoying to play, but like, are they going to make the playoffs? And are they going to do anything if they get there? Can we cross off the Jets?
No, I don't think so. I just because
the Patriots off already, and they're technically 3rd in the AFC East. I'm just saying.
No, is that they're 4th?
No, they're technically 3rd. Technically 3rd.
Oh yeah, because they
7 wins each. Yeah. So I mean, we crossed the Patriots off already. They're ahead of the Jets.
What I would say as an advocate to keep the Jets on the list is that their wins were defiantly different than the Patriots' wins. I mean, they went in they let Buffalo come into their stadium and they beat them, and then they almost went up to Buffalo and beat them with Mike White leaving for injury twice during that game. I think
he got crunched. My God. I've never seen someone bend like that in my entire life. That one hit was absurd.
Yeah. It was. There's so many more positives about the Jets that I think you have to keep them on. You can't cross them off yet.
All right.
Can I just go back how bad the Ravens actually look and have been performing? That we cross them off and we're sitting here like 7-6 Jets? No. Ravens, fucking get them out of here.
If it was only about the wins and losses, we wouldn't be here having the conversation, right?
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you have to do the eye test. You have to look at what actually matters when it comes to who they might play round one, like all this different stuff. It all factors in. And I do think that the Jets have I could see the Jets rattling off 3 wins in a row from I could see it happening, whoever they're playing. No fucking way the Ravens are doing that. No way. So especially without Lamar, like maybe with Lamar, maybe, but even then I'd be skeptical. So it really is just about like where we go from here. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's getting tight. It's getting tight. Like we're ruthless over here. All right, let's move to the NFC. We already crossed the Saints off. You guys wouldn't let me cross up either the Falcons or the Panthers, which is a good thing.
Yeah, we're not crossing them off still. It's only they're one game back, bro.
The Bucks, I mean, Mike, I think it's all coming back to me now. The last time you were on the show, you and I actually were in agreement that the world was going to right itself and Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were going to start to look like they were supposed to look with the on paper talent that they have, especially the quarterback position. Can I ask you real quick, just because Tampa Bay is not on the power rankings, and we had a conversation with Joe and Ray about this last week. Is Tom Brady finally showing his age, or is it a system head coach talent issue down there in Tampa?
I think he's showing his age in the sense that he can't be behind a depleted offensive line and still like make magic, right?
Okay.
I mean, the 2 come from behind wins since the last time I was on here tell me that. I mean, at any
Tom
given
Brady's
moment,
still Tom Brady, right?
He's still a fucking assassin, right? But at 45, he's throwing the ball on average 48 times a game. You can't. I mean, what the fuck do you want from him?
Yeah,
I think he's doing the best that he can right now.
I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot of people quick to say, this is some people, members of this specific parish, very quick to say, you know who you are, Joe. Very quick to say that Tom Brady is a shell of himself all of a sudden. But I mean, I look at it from a slightly different perspective. I look at it from the fact that he's playing at this level at all at 45 is impressive. And I think if he's made any mistakes, it's not physically he's falling apart or mentally he's falling apart. I think maybe there was just a little bit of an ego issue with the reshuffling and the coaching. And I think maybe Bruce Arians deserved a little bit more credit for how he put that team together. Maybe.
Yeah.
Obviously there's like some differences. There's some swagger about guys that got championships that fucked off to other teams, and like all this stuff obviously plays a part, but it's tough to drop that albatross around Tom Brady's neck, I think, because the only thing I would say to argue this is if you dropped him into Minnesota right now, Minnesota immediately become the favorites for the Super Bowl.
No doubt.
So you can't say, oh, Tom Brady's falling apart when you know that fact is true. If you dropped him into Miami right now, they become the favorites for the Super Bowl. If you dropped him into, if you dropped him into Arizona right now, I bet he wins out with DeAndre Hopkins. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the fact of the matter is a lot of people want Tom Brady to be done. But now that he's divorced, like I think he might have an off season to remember and come back at 46 win in a row against Seattle.
And he's gonna recoup some of that crypto debt, but. I mean, at 45 years old,
from that. We all suffered. We all suffered.
45 years old, he's like 4th in the league in passing yards, like with 3,600, 17 touchdowns, 5 picks. I mean,
he's better than half the quarterbacks in the league.
I think what speaks to that, it's more of like what Mike just said. It's more of the O-line issue too. If you look at Tampa Bay and his 2-minute drill stats, it's a completely different story with how their offense plays and how everything. They're first in the league. Yeah, they're good, right? So
he's always been the best 2-minute drill quarterback in the NFL, though, and then probably in the history of the NFL, right? Like
without a doubt,
that hasn't changed. If that hasn't changed, then he hasn't changed.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. They have 4.3 points per drive. He's 4-0 touchdown to interceptions. 23 first downs so far this season, and end of game 2-minute drills. And the reason for that, I feel like, is because the offensive line the defensive line doesn't have a chance to catch their breath. They don't have a chance to rush the passer on that. And when Brady has that time, he's Tom Brady, and it's period. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's 31 other fan bases in the NFL other than Tampa Bay, and I think if 28 of them told you that they wouldn't take Tom Brady on their team, they'd be fucking lying to you.
Full of shit.
Still, I think if you have Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen, I probably wouldn't take him in Chicago, but that's only because, like, I'm a firm believer in Justin Fields, but you could probably talk me into him coming and teaching Justin Fields how to be better. So, like, I don't know. For me, being like a non-Patriots fan, but growing up in New England, I've had my moments of wanting him to not do good because I have to listen to you fucking assholes all the time. But having moved out of New England, what I realized the talk about Tom Brady equates to most of the time is a lack of knowledge about greatness. Like that's what happens when people in Los Angeles talk to you about Tom Brady, because you're just like, well, I mean, I get it. I've been annoyed by him, but ever since I saw that comeback against the Falcons, I've pretty much decided that he's the best one, and doubt him at your peril. So I will, maybe not this season. I think there's still a chance that either the Panthers or the Falcons win the division, even though I think it probably still will be Tampa. But if he has a little bit of a weird offseason and he ends up in a team that I could think of 5 teams off the top of my head that have a ton of talent and don't have a good quarterback that he could walk right into. So doubt him at your peril. Like we said, all right, we're crossing up the Bears, unfortunately, but like I said, watch out for his next season. Most salary cap available to any team. We got a high draft pick because we lost all these games, and Justin Fields is definitely next year. So we'll see. The Packers, I don't know if we crossed them off or not yet, but we can, right?
Oh, cross
them off.
So glad Mike's here for that. He loves crossing up Aaron.
That's in honor of Mike. We've kept him alive this time. We're like, we can't cross him off until Mike comes back.
Love that. I love that for him.
Appreciate it.
I mean, it's not really worth talking about. At the end of the day, I think that they came in, it's pretty simple to me. They came in and they tried to rejigger an offense that would never have worked for Aaron Rodgers. You need a coach that can coach the West Coast offense for it to work. I think he has weapons there, but I think that as much as I don't like Aaron Rodgers, I'm on the record, I don't really think it's been his fault. Like you used him wrong this year. Like you just did. So we'll see. I mean, I still don't think he's a winner as far as, really digging in and winning multiple Super Bowls. I'm still off the hope that he'll end with 1, and that's too many. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think this season is necessarily his fault. I think that offense was run badly. I think that but also he never really wanted to buy into it. So,
right.
Well, you think about Aaron Rodgers' strength, it's the 10 to 15 yard passes and then deep balls when it's needed. He hits them on the money. But this season has been screens. It's been, all stuff behind.
I think make him into Tom Brady or Garraoplo or something.
I think they lead the league in throws underneath 5 yards so far this year, and that's not how you win with Aaron Rodgers.
But like, even he's not even an underneath throw type of guy. He actually is more of like he'll hit a guy 12 to 13 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Right. But he's putting it where his receiver can catch it, but he's killing you in between your linebackers and your safeties. That's where I watched him always kill the Bears. Just kill them right in that spot. And it's like, what do? Do you pull up a safety? Because then he's going to kill you on the deep ball. What do? Do you drop down a linebacker? Well, then he's going to kill you on the run because he's always had good running backs. It's tough, but they're just not running the right system there in Green Bay. I love it. I'm happy about it, but I can't directly blame him. I mean, Mike, I'm not asking you to defend Aaron Rodgers, but so you agree, right?
Yeah. So the 2 things that I'm going to say is, like, it would be, I try to stay true to my take, but as a Tom Brady sicko fan, I cannot criticize Aaron Rodgers for not being able to do one of the things that Brady was never able to do, and that's elevate younger talent. When he got older, he had his favorites, he picked them, and The one thing I wanted to say though is like Aaron Rodgers' yards per completion over his career leading up to this season was 11.4 yards
which is
per completion.
super fucking high for a quarterback.
This season, it's 5.8.
There you go. There you go.
But that's
it.
I mean, your stat just proved everything we were just talking about. Like on the eye test and the stats finally lined up.
But Watson could be a really good receiver.
He's good, man. He's good. He's fast.
Yeah, he's really fast. And
I like Lazard too. I mean, I think they have some weapons there.
But you're gonna get the ghost of Randall Cobb out of there. And like if you get a fast number one again, they're gonna be right back where they were if he wants to do it.
Do you see him playing in Green Bay next year? Because again, there's 5 teams that need a quarterback that have all the weapons. Like if he I don't see him going to the Vikings. Like
I think his contract is pretty abysmal to try and trade. I think.
Yeah,
he's also enough of a cock that like he could make that trade happen. If we're being honest, and there's a dude waiting in the wings. Do
you think he sacrifices any payday of his to go to a different team? Because I don't
know, man. I don't know. I mean, I think that to not beat him with the stick of like, I don't think he's ever been like a payday chaser. I think Brady always puts great quarterbacks to shame with his behavior when it comes to money, at least direct contract money. When he wanted to build good teams, he took pay cuts. That was also when he was married to one of the richest women in the world, and he didn't really need the money. And I don't know how his investments are doing, and we are hitting a recession, so like who knows? But Rodgers, you're right, was never that guy. He very much played the I was the number 1 overall pick card all the time, and I earned my contract card all the time. And they weren't really able to put high contracts around him in his time in Green Bay, and I think that did probably prevent him from a couple of Super Bowls. I mean, I saw some stat, I don't have it in front of me, but it's something along the lines of like Aaron Rodgers has had 1 first overall pick or 1 first round pick in his weapon arsenal at wide receiver or tight end in the history of his offense. I think something ludicrous like that. I think it was just Randall Cobb was a first round pick. I mean, I could be getting this totally wrong. People might be like screaming at their radios right now as if you listen to podcasts on radio. Oh, fun. But I do think that he has sacrificed in the past. He's probably got plenty of money now though. And like
none. It's zero.
He's never had a first round.
Never had a first round pick as a wide receiver.
That's pretty crazy, right? Yeah. Like, and I think a lot of
two quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean that is pretty nuts. So he has done a lot over there. I'm not tying myself in Aaron Rodgers actually.
What are we doing here? What are we?
Again, if they traded him, right? Like he's valuable. Like you could, if you're the Packers, you got a young kid just like you had with Rodgers and Favre. You got a young kid that might slot right in. You maybe are coming up to a little bit of a rebuild. You got a little bit of a higher draft pick because you're probably gonna have 7 wins max this season. Maybe you move on from Aaron Rodgers and you get like a good edge rusher or something in a package deal for a team that has everything but a quarterback, which we said there's a few of those. I mean, this offseason could be interesting for that reason. But we're crossing the Packers off anyway. We're not crossing the Lions off because apparently we have to talk about that in the fucking power rankings. Vikings are not crossing off, even though they have the most fucking inflated 10-3 record since the Pittsburgh Steelers 2 years ago that almost broke up this podcast. And we're moving on to the NFC West. I'm not uncrossing off the LA Rams because of Baker Mayfield. So like, let's just squash that right there. The Cardinals are crossed off, especially since very unfortunate RIP Kyler Murray's ACL. Bobby called that immediately in the Discord chat based on just how he cut. But the no contact was obvious. He was fucked right when that happened.
Yeah.
He's going to really enjoy his recuperation because I know he likes the game. And I hope he comes back to a non-Cliff Kingsbury Arizona Cardinals because there's a lot of weapons there. And that dude is not the football line to have them. But they're crossed off. Got to keep the Seahawks. Got to keep the 49ers, obviously. And then the NFC East. This is funny because I actually think we should cross off the New York Giants. And I would cross them off before I would cross off the Commanders.
I agree with that. Who do they have? Let's see what the schedule is.
All right, let's go to the phones just to see what does it look like.
So we got the New York Giants Commanders. Next week
they're going to play each other. Got it.
This next week is lose or leave town.
No problem.
Okay,
got it. All right, that does it. That answers the question. Thank you for doing that. So that actually,
for what it's worth. For what it's worth, the Giants don't have a division win this year. So
is that true? Is that true?
They have a tough division.
They're 0-3-1. They're one title against the Commanders.
Wow. I am pretty fucking surprised the Commanders are as good as they are. But you know what? We're not going to spend any time talking about that. We're going to move right into the power rankings because it is the power rankings show. We've done our cross-offs. Less new ones than I thought we were going to have. But hey, here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news. You will be surprised to learn that number 10 with a bullet on this week's Real BK Power Rankings are the Detroit Lions. 3 wins in a row, Bob. I mean, I get it. DeAndre Swift's finally looking like himself. Mike, you're welcome. I think I see why you put him at 10.
Isn't it 5 wins in a row? 5, right?
I thought it was
2. Isn't it just 2 wins in a row?
Okay, well, they've had some wins.
Weren't they 1 and 6?
Let's look it up just to find out.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now.
Part out where we didn't know what the fuck.
1-2 in a row.
All right, fine, 2 in a row. 5 or 6. We suck.
Cut this whole part out, Craig. We have to sound smarter than this. All right. 2 wins in a row, Bob. I get it.
Okay, yeah, but they should have beat the Bills for the record. But yeah.
Oh well, shoulda, woulda, fuck, coulda. As our good friend and current podcast contributor Mark Margangelo always says, horseshoes and hand grenades, my friend. Why are the Detroit Lions number 10 on your list? Do you see them lasting? Are they going to make a playoff run? What do you see of this Detroit Lions team? What's happening? I mean, they're in a tough division to make it out of, considering the Vikings, as much as they're maybe low on the power rankings, they have a lot of wins. So what's your reasoning here?
I just love the way that this team has been playing lately, man. They play like a team that knows that their ass is on the line because it was. I mean, listen, 2.5 months ago, we were talking about Dan Campbell getting fired. Now they're 1 game out of the playoffs with 2 very questionable teams ahead of them on the list. 3, actually, if you count the Seahawks. So I just see it as like, listen, I don't really buy into the Commanders, don't really buy into the Giants, and I half buy into the Seahawks. I buy into the Lions a little more because of that offense.
You were buying in pretty hard on the Giants at one point this year.
Yes. But that was when Dabble had his no regard for humankind mindset every week, and now he's kind of let his ass clench up the last 3 weeks.
Well, I think we knew it was going to happen. I did try to say this when we were first starting to talk about the Giants and those sort of teams where the world was going to right itself.
You're like, is this a fake winning streak? They're 5-0. Is that for real?
Yeah, I mean, look, 7-5. You know,
the most redeeming quality about the Lions is how they have rallied to get around Dan Campbell.
Yeah,
how Jared Goff actually looks like a really good quarterback. I mean,
he isn't though. But he isn't though.
Yeah, but this logic would dictate that if you're a bad quarterback and you go to a terrible team with not good skill players, you're probably going to see yourself out of the league. And what he's done is now throw for 3,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, and seven picks. He's pretty good this year, and they're 3-1 in the division. Like that.
You heard it here first, folks. The LA Rams made a mistake trading for Matt Stafford. They should have kept Jared Goff. You heard it here first.
I don't know that I said that, but you definitely heard it here first.
No, I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying. It's just that, like, I think you're a little bit going to be a victim of the Kirk Cousins rule. It's like you're not going to get to the Super Bowl and win it with Jared Goff. It's just not going to happen. If you ask me, I'd be pretty fucking surprised.
You might get to it though.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
I'm sorry, I don't want to hijack this, Bobby. So I apologize. But DK, gun to head right now. If you had to pick one quarterback that would get you to a Super Bowl, but not win it, but just get you there, Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff?
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yeah, I'm taking Jared Goff. I am.
Yeah.
I am. Fuck. That's my whole worldview is crumbling. All right. Yeah, that's fair. That's completely fair. All right, I'm done talking shit about Jared Goff because Mike backed me into a corner. Oh my God, I'm never gonna fucking recover from that. All right.
And hey, listen. As much as we talk about the Vikings as frauds, they are 10-3. They have wins against, the Bills. They've wins against some quality opponents this year.
Get to those puppets,
but
can't wait
for the Lions to win that game after everyone's questioning them. Why are they favorites in this game? For them to go out and actually dominate the Vikings. That game was really never in question.
Suck, Bobby. We've been talking about this all season. It's because the Vikings aren't good. Like, they were due a fucking shellacking from a team that aren't very good. Like, well, whatever. We'll do the Seahawks first, just because I need to go in order. My brain will explode, and then we'll get to the Vikings, if that sounds fair and amenable to everybody. We'll talk about the Seattle Seahawks I'd like to think the same sort of breath as we talk about the Vikings or the Lions and these teams where, yeah, I mean, it's great. I did not enjoy watching Geno Smith free fall in the draft and the poor kid's face and everything that happened since then, especially getting drafted by the fucking New York Jets. And I want him to succeed. And I want the prototypical type of quarterback that he is to succeed for obvious reasons. But the Seahawks aren't winning shit. They did better than we thought, and that's really well done. But it's big boy time now, and it's time to go away. I mean, I appreciate why they're number 9 on the rankings. I think they're scrappy. I think that Pete Carroll deserves more credit than he's ever gotten by the merit of this season. And maybe we should even go so far as to question Russell Wilson's pure talent levels if the system is this good. Maybe both things can be true. I don't know. But is anyone going to sit here and talk me into the fucking Seattle Seahawks being contenders? Because as much as they're on the power rankings, I think we've discovered that 7, 8, 9, and 10 are the fucking also ran.
It's a crapshoot. Yeah, exactly. 7, 8, 9, 10.
It just is. And it's been a weird season, but have you enjoyed watching them, Mike, at least? I mean, thoughts?
Geno should win comeback player of the year.
It's already his, right?
Of course. I mean, you think about the way that he was treated when he was drafted by the Jets, then whatever happened to him after he got let go.
For sure.
But to think about the fact that Seattle gives up what they think is, their star quarterback, the reason for all their success. And just, I'd say 14 weeks into the season, Seattle won that deal. I mean, Geno looks.
They still have.
Yeah.
Geno looks. He looks, I would say, not elite, but really good. And I think the way that I would rate him, right, is the fact that Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf both have just they're both 100 yards shy of 1,000 yards receiving this year already. So he's spreading the ball out. He's not just honing in on DK Metcalf. And I don't know, this could be a fun team. I think the emergence of Walker as their running back, that adds another level to it.
He's a beast.
But I don't
rookie of the year stuff for him, or you think Garrett Wilson's coming in with a shout? What do we think?
Garrett's probably going to take that.
Yeah, I think Garrett too.
I really thought he had it locked up. Week 8. Though.
Well, Ken Walker was out this past week, so that's why I kind of give the Seahawks a little bit of a break for that Panthers game. But at the same time, that is also why they're not contenders, because their running back was out, and then they proceeded to lose to the Carolina Panthers. So it's like it's a catch-22 where it's like your running back's out. It's a very big portion of your offense, which gives you an excuse for this week, but also gives me little faith about what you're going to do for the rest of the season.
It makes me think, though, too, and not to spend too much time on this, but a quick aside, because it has been not for Denver fans, but a fun little through line throughout the whole NFL season, which is Russell Wilson going to Denver. Who is he going to be? Blah, blah, blah. Mike, you remember we did a prediction show probably almost 2 years ago at this point? I was like, I don't know. I don't think the Seahawks are going to be that good. And you were like, no, they're definitely going to be good. They have Tyler Lockett, they have DK Metcalf. And they turned out to be shitty. I'm not doing a victory lap on that. I'm wondering.
Feels like it.
No, it was like a victory sprint.
It's a light jog. That's all I can do. It's in my third. The lap's gonna take a while. So but what I mean to say is, you remember we had that conversation. I think that you were being informed by a real thing. There are talented skill players in Seattle. And I think that what we should have been doing is less condemning the Seahawks and more realizing earlier that Russell Wilson's either interest or talent level had dropped off before he even went to Denver. I think Geno Smith is having a great year. I'm not trying to take anything from him. But again, there's teams that all they really need is a quarterback to get plugged in, and I think that the Seahawks might be on the bottom of that list. It's hardly the Vikings. They're not the Vikings. They're not a team that has skill players very clearly elevating their quarterback. Yeah. But again, you drop Tom Brady in the Seattle right now, which I can't see that happening with their shared history. But if you drop Tom Brady into Seattle right now, and I'm not taking anything away from Geno Smith, I'm in fact just trying to shit on Russell Wilson. I mean, he makes them a 75% win team, right?
Well,
they're winning at least 12 games, 13 games this season if Tom Brady's their quarterback.
You want to directly shit on Russell Wilson is if you drop Tom Brady into Denver, that team is
problems than him.
Yeah, but if they it's statistical fact that if the Broncos had scored 20 points in 9 of their 10 losses, they would have won those games.
So you're saying their defense is like just
their defense is next level. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I agree that he
don't they have the number one scoring defense in the league?
They're averaging 13.7 points per game.
Yeah, that is so bad.
It's actually the worst in the Super Bowl era. Like, it's not close. So, but
imagine your team. Can you imagine watching a football team that you're rooting for that is struggling? If you're averaging 14 points a game, that means that like it's a struggle to get to that 14 points a game because they've scored more than 14, but usually they score less.
Honestly, now that I think of it, remember, it seems fucking hot.
It's the lowest in the Super Bowl era, and since that started, there have been 2 winless teams, and they're not even close to that. So that's how bad this offense is.
You're telling me that the Rex Grossman Bears were a better offense?
Yes.
Than this Denver Broncos offense.
What Bobby just told you is that if Rex Grossman was their quarterback this year, they would have 9 less losses.
What's Jim Miller doing? Call him up.
Bro. Seriously though.
Call him up. So Russell Wilson's the worst quarterback in the NFL right now, is what you're telling me.
Well, he's the quarterback of the worst offense in the NFL right now.
He has more bathrooms than touchdowns.
That was for you, Chris.
No, that's true. There's a
YouTube video going around.
The TikTok goes checking in again, just because he has a crazy amount of bathrooms.
He has 12 bathrooms, I think it was. He looks so. If you watch him, he looks so sad when he does it too, because he definitely didn't think by week 15 of the NFL season he'd still be doing these goddamn videos.
There's also this other weird thing going on with him, right? And this is the last thing we'll do on Russell Wilson.
So Seahawks and Russell Wilson are always going to be linked forever, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, the guy is a champion, and I think that there's a couple of those Seahawks teams that are very good. Not just their arena or their or their circumstance or whatever, and they should have 2 if they're one play away from having 2. So I think that there is something to say for Russell Wilson's career. I don't think he should be defined by this, but how can we just talk for a second about how fucking weird of the guy he is? Like, why does he code switch so much depending on a situation? Like,
he's so weird.
How mad do you think Subway are right now? Like,
it's dangerous. It's so dangerous.
It's like with all the bad PR stuff. Like, what is it about him? Like, who is he as a person? Like, as much as they all have public relations images, right? Like, they all have this. Like, you don't really know who Tom Brady is, but I could kind of guess, right? Like, I could sort of guess. It's getting in. I don't know. He probably drinks fucking kombucha instead of beer, but like 4 beers in with Tom Brady, I could guess what he would start to say about like the state of the world. Russell Wilson, I have no fucking idea, and like I get Out vibes from him. Like,
I feel
a movie. Like, I'm like, what's your fucking deal, bro?
I feel like he's a guy that has the heavy conversations. That's who Russell Wilson is. After a few beers, you're like, bro.
Yeah, but he has like the weird side of the opinion.
Yeah, the weird side. Right, exactly.
Oh man, I don't know.
He's the cringiest human being I've ever seen in my life.
He's got some cringe to him. I can't believe
Mr. Unlimited. Unlimited.
But you have guys that played on his team that are full blown transparent personalities in the NFL right now, like Sherman, like Marshawn Lynch, guys that were his teammates that are shockingly silent. Like, they're not coming out and going like, no. Russ is the fucking A1.
They're doing the opposite.
Like, they're kind of going. Right. Well, I don't know if they're saying
Marshawn Lynch
shit about him. I think Marshawn Lynch just talks out of pocket quite a bit.
Well, also he let out to the world that he doesn't have Russell Wilson's phone number. It never did.
That's
weird. He has to call someone who calls Russell Wilson?
Well, I guess that lends the question: does anybody have Russell Wilson's phone number?
Does Russell Wilson exist?
Okay,
Does Russell Wilson exist?
Funny story, true story, right? When I did that commercial in Seattle, and we had some of the players, right? We had Tyler Lockett, we had DK Metcalf.
Yeah, you told me that.
Guys. We were, dealing with them, getting them into the room, and it's their stadium that we were shooting at, so they were like, pretty comfortable. But Tyler Lockett was like, "Yo, I need a haircut. Can you get me a barber?" And which is like a pretty normal request from like celebrity talent when you're shooting these commercials. And I was like, but I was in Seattle. Like, I didn't know any of my normal guys here in LA where I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll get you the guy that does drink. Like, it's fine. Like, here's his fucking resume. You'll do great." Like, I can call that dude. We're good. Like, he does Drake. You guys can talk about Drake. I don't know what the fuck, whatever. I'll give him like a ludicrous amount of cash in his hand, and then you can move on with your life. But I couldn't find anybody. And finally I talked to someone who talked to someone that like was in with the team, and they got me Russell Wilson's guy. And I was like, "Oh, cool. I got Russell Wilson's barber." And he was fucking weird about it. I was like, "Hey, Tyler Lockett's manager or agent, or whoever the fuck I was talking to," I was like, "I got Russell Wilson's barber." And the agent was like, "Okay, are you sure that's the only option?" And I was like, "Interesting." And what my first question was, and I don't really care that we're saying this in the podcast because like what fucking ever. But my first question was, does Russell Wilson have that bad of a haircut? It's pretty fine. But maybe there's some weirdness. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I mean, there's a lot to read into. That's a lot.
Yep. Is that a stepping on toes weirdness? Is that weird? That's weird.
I think the fact that the manager didn't hesitate, like he wasn't like, "All right, let me check in with him." Like he was like, "Is there nobody else?" That's to me an established issue.
Yeah.
Right. And then that was the season I came back. Right after I got back from that shoot, you and I had the conversation, Mike, about how good the Seahawks are going to be. And I was like, "I don't know, man. It's weird over there." We were like, "No, they're so good." And then they sucked. And it was like, "Oh, weird room." Maybe he creates weird rooms. All right. Well, I'm glad we had that conversation. That was fun.
That was fun.
Fucking Russell Wilson. I mean, the guy's doing fine, right? He's doing okay. He can take a little bit of ribbing from the Missing the Point podcast. All right, fine. Let's talk about the
again. Here we are.
The fucking Minnesota Vikings. I really like Jefferson. I think that he is either 1 or 1A best wide receiver in the NFL. I think that, and that's not something we're going to litigate.
Who else would you put ahead of him?
Not to litigate it, but who's the other option?
Yeah,
I think a gentleman down in Las Vegas.
He's Devontae.
Is having very difficult. He's in a very difficult community, but I think on pure talent, he could have the season that this other gentleman is having if given the right circumstances. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so what I'm saying is essentially when I watch Davante Adams, he is to me the kind of wide receiver that I look for. Like he's the guy that has the kind of skills and speed and the things that he brings to the table. That to me reminds me of like Randy Moss and his plan, right? I'm like, that's the guy. I think that it's completely fair to say it's Jefferson because of the theatrical shit that he pulls off. But we're talking about a skill position on a team that isn't going to go anywhere because they have Kirk Cousins as a quarterback, which you're talking about every week. I think Davante Adams could go somewhere else and do some shit. I think that. Go ahead.
No, I agree because all right, Jefferson right now is in the same offense that just produced Cooper Kupp's record-breaking season last year.
If you put also in the conversation, if he wasn't
hurt, yeah. But if you put Devontae in this offense, I think you're right. I think he has an even better season than Jefferson's having right now.
Sure, that's why I mean like 1 or 1A though. Like I think that Devontae, I think it's a little bit of a different skill set. I think that like if I needed a red zone wide receiver, I'd probably take Jefferson, right? Like if I needed somebody to come up in the corner, 15 yards from the end zone line, I'd probably take Jefferson. If I was like in my own 5 and I needed a breakout play, I'd probably take Davante Adams. But again, we're splitting fucking hairs here, so it doesn't really matter. Point is, he's wasted in Minnesota and always will be if he doesn't get the fuck out of there.
This has been pretty good to wide receivers though, like the last 30 years.
Yes, they have been. Once they get a move, like once they get a move to somewhere real. I mean, look at Randy. Like it's.
But can you just imagine
and Diggs
how dumb the Eagles feel for taking whoever the fuck they picked?
I mean, they feel all right.
Jefferson.
They got 11.
Jalen Reagor. It was Jalen Reagor,
and he's on the Minnesota now.
He's on Minnesota now. Yeah,
they're feeling okay.
Yeah, but just I mean that that's a real powerhouse team with a quarterback that we don't know won't win anything. So we keep, the possibilities are endless. Kirk Cousins is a fucking pussy. That's just what it is. You feel like let's just call it what it is.
Let's call a pussy a pussy. Let's call a spade a spade.
Like he has so much talent, and he's everything that you would want out of a quarterback from all of the stats and the physical attributes. He just doesn't have the heart. Like he doesn't have the winning mentality. So
miles and miles of heart. I just think that if I had Dalvin Cook, I had Jefferson, and I had fucking even Thielen, if I had these dudes and I was playing QB, I'd be like, look, I'm not NFL caliber here, obviously, but if I can hand it off to Dalvin Cook enough times, and I know where Justin Jefferson is going to be, I could probably win some regular season games with the Minnesota Vikings. It's like these guys are fucking believable, And I just think that Kirk Cousins, I don't mean to keep bashing the guy. I mean, I know that he's probably a nice fella, but we've spent every fucking single week on this podcast talking about what everyone in Minnesota knows, Bob, which is that you're not winning shit with Kirk Cousins as your QB. You're just not.
I feel like if they had an elite level defense, it would be different. But the fact is, they have one of the worst defenses in the league. So
they've done that. They've already we've seen that story out of Kirk Cousins in Minnesota.
Yeah, that's true. We have. Yeah, you're right. 4 games in a row, they've given up 400 plus yards.
Geno Smith over Kirk Cousins. I don't think they've lost a game this year.
This iteration,
yeah, comparable passing yards.
Yeah,
but I don't think they've lost a game this year. And I think that I'm like, I don't know, maybe he does something. Like now we're having the conversation, like maybe Geno Smith could beat the Vikings too, et cetera, et cetera. We know Kirk Cousins isn't doing it. We know. Like I put my whole fucking mortgage on this motherfucker not winning a Super Bowl. I just will.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, Leah wouldn't let me, but I would be sure. But I couldn't talk her into it. But still,
as high-powered of an offense as they have, like they're minus
but
1
it's
point
so
differential.
high-powered though.
Minus
is so good.
Minus 1 point differential. That's how bad their defense is.
Wild. No, their defense actually, honestly, their defense deserves a little bit more shit.
It does.
It's terrible.
It's fucking Kirk Cousins because it's bad. It's bad.
They blitzed Goff 13 times this past week. He was only pressured on 26% of the total dropbacks, and he was 10 of 13 with 2 touchdowns on those blitzes.
Can I ask you a question? And again, I know I'm hosting the show, so sorry about this, but I'm about to drag it into another side. Is the blitz dead? I'm really starting, and especially as a Chicago Bears fan, the 46 defense was everybody blitzed, right? Like we get there so fast that it doesn't matter how 9 guys are open in the
It's one of my favorite defenses to play in Madden.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. If you know how to do it, if you know how to drop one safety back and really like make triangle plays, like you're good to go. And by triangle plays, I mean the triangle button on your PlayStation controller, which is the catch button.
Not a Michael Jordan reference.
No. Not an NBA reference at all. And it would be more of a Phil Jackson reference, but regardless.
Well, fair.
I think, thank you for all my NBA aficionados. Thank you. Is the blitz dead? I'm 100% sure that my next statement is true. If anyone can talk me out of it. If you can't get pressure on the quarterback with 4, you can't get pressure on the quarterback effectively. Is that now true in the modern NFL? I think you have to have guys that can rush 4, or even the next iteration might be rush 3. Play a 3-4, right? Not to get, and we do try to avoid getting into the X's and O's on these podcasts because, yeah, I mean, we've been watching football a long time. We're trying to make it accessible for the layman here. But if you rush 3 or 4 and you get pressure, you have a good front line. You have a good defense at that point, right? If you have to send a linebacker in today's NFL with the skills that the quarterbacks have, with the quickness and reads that quarterbacks have, with how important it is to have plays develop early because of pressure on offense, right? It's always this tic-tac-toe back and forth with offenses and defenses. You have to be able to release quick these days. In the post-Tom Brady NFL, to be quite honest, you have to be able to release quick. If you can't pressure with 4, you can't pressure. If you blitz a fucking linebacker, even Kirk Cousins is going to tear you apart. There's just going to be a hole. It's just the way that the NFL works now. Am I wrong?
No, because you look at the best teams in the NFL. What do? They pressure with 4. The the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Cowboys. I don't know much about the Bengals D-line, to be honest. But those 3 teams I know for a fact don't blitz that much and rely on their D-line. So, yeah, I'm with you.
You have to do it. Brian Urlacher is an edge rusher in today's NFL, right? Like they're gonna train him to be a fucking an edge rusher or a full cover 2 spy the quarterback, sometimes middle linebacker that never rushes ever. Like I think that's the situation we're in, right?
Yeah, I would just say if you really just think about it, name a top like blitzing defense that didn't have a top corner.
Right, because you got to be able to play man. You have to be able to play man.
You have to.
Saying. Yeah. So like you can have the middle of the field covered because your linebackers nowadays have essentially turned into safeties. They're all about 2 inches shorter than they were when we were 12, right? They're not 6'2", 275 anymore. They're 5'10", 205, right? Like that's the kind of prototypical linebacker now. I mean, maybe the exact stats are off for like draft scouts, but those guys have to cover the middle of the field. Why? Because tight ends got more athletic. Because running backs got better at pass catching, because all the middle of the field is open for an offense now. So you're reacting as a defense. So you're right. You need a Jalen Ramsey. You need a Jalen Ramsey on your team to be able to cover the best wide receiver on the field, which is tough because I think cornerback is a really hard job still. Because
corners are a hard job. Like if you think about the defenses when you think about blitzes, it's like, oh yeah, the 2000 Ravens. Yeah, they had Ed Reed. 2001 Patriots.
Yeah, but he was an island though.
Yeah,
like Reed was an island. Like
Ty Law, Reed. I mean, you have to have a corner that can shut you down, and if you don't, like you can blitz all the time, you're gonna get fucking torched.
You gotta love that about defense, Bobby, because as a late adoptee in the I Love an Elite Defense Club, what you love is that as much as they try to change the rules to benefit offenses, defenses always come to fucking play, man. I love the Cowboys defense this year. We'll get to that. But I mean, you have that. You can bring pressure with 4, right? You have ball hawk safeties and cornerbacks. You have athletic linebackers that don't rush the QB. They come back and try to intercept balls or bat down balls or just pick up a guy in the middle of coverage if a big tight end comes in. You're a late adopter to this whole scenario, right? Yeah, so you have to be on my team for this.
100%. I think what it is it's impossible to scheme against a team that can rush 3 to 4 and get pressure. You can scheme against a blitz, but
where are the holes?
Right. What are you going to do? You're going to fade over to this side, and then all of a sudden the other DN is going to come off the line and get him. So it's impossible to scheme against.
Or like we talked about with Rodgers, everybody in every offense now is trying to do this pump and dump.
Yeah.
Like, let me drop it to this lightning fast guy 3 yards over the thing like the Chiefs are able to do. And maybe he makes a play because the linebackers dropped a little bit back. So maybe we can get 6 to 8 yards. It makes for a fun product, but man, defenses play catch up, but they've done a pretty good job. I'm glad we got into that chat. Before we moved on to the number 7 Dolphins, are they fading? Are we worried? Because, like, I love that wide receiver duo. Is Tua the guy? Mike, where were you on the Dolphins at the start, and where are you now?
Well, if you remember at the start, I said that the Patriots were going to be closer to the Jets than they were the Dolphins. The Dolphins were probably the second team.
That's true, though.
Yeah, and it's true. And I think what we saw against the Chargers is that Tua was kind of exposed in this game, and they didn't overly blitz, but when he's going
games in a row now, right?
Yeah, 10 of 28 for like $140.
He's like one of 16. He started off, right?
Yeah, they do. That's why it's a good, solid number 7 for the Dolphins because they look a little found out.
They're one of those teams though, like to your point of like 7 through 10 is a crapshoot. When they're on, they are just as good as the top 3.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw it. They beat the Bills. They beat some of these top teams, but
it's early in the season easier to do that though. Like a more talented team has more time together, they get better. Right?
With this style of football team, yes, because what the Dolphins do is they're just fast. They're fast, they're precision, they're all about hitting the spots and making big plays. When you get into December, that kind of fades. It's not even like a fatigue thing. It's just the weather, the type of football that gets played.
That's why those Patriots teams were so good.
Because they did smash mouth football, man.
But they did exactly that. It was like, hit your fucking spots. Don't care who you are. Don't care if you're Wes Welker or fucking Mess Melker. You hit your fucking spot and catch the fucking ball. I don't care if it's 2 degrees or fucking 200 degrees. You hit your spot and catch the ball. Like, that is a hard style of football to play, especially at this point in the season, right? Like, and all those underneath throws and stuff. It does become a little bit more about the athletic guys that can make plays downfield and tired cornerbacks that have spent all this time. It's a tough division to come out of, Mike. Are we going to be talking about the Dolphins in the playoffs?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. I mean,
it's really.
I think that offense is too much to handle on a consistent basis. That they're 8-5 right now. They're probably going to finish like 11-6, which is, I mean, I think that's better than most people would have given them credit for. And as long, if they play in a wind trap, like we lucked out against Buffalo last year, like Tua's going to fucking suck. Like, it's just going to happen. But if it's regular conditions at any given time, Waddle or Tyreek Hill could just go off for 150 yards in that game. Like, and their defense is just good enough to always give their offense a chance to win. So yeah, but I do think that right now you're seeing are we sure that Tua is the right guy?
Yeah,
because there's going to be
we're back to this conversation, huh? Because for the first 7 weeks of the season, he was.
He was an MVP candidate 2 weeks ago.
McDaniels, he's McDaniels guy, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. But like I said to you, I think it was you all the last time I was here. There's going to be a certain 46-year-old quarterback that's going to want to go to Miami next year.
Right. I mean, it's been the theme of the show. There's a few teams that are super talented, but one quarterback short. Are we putting the Dolphins, Bobby? Are we putting the Dolphins in that category? Are we giving up on Tua after 2 games? 2 games?
I think we'll know a lot more this week. If they come out no, they play Buffalo this week.
Till we die.
But they play Buffalo this week. So if they come out and get absolutely smacked by Buffalo, then yeah, I think we know who the Dolphins are coming in December.
Or do we have a whole separate conversation talking about how, Buffalo is still weird, and maybe it was Buffalo not being good that made this happen?
But
I love the NFL.
DK, if the final score of this game was like 43-42 in favor of the Chargers and 203 for 400 yards,
whole different conversation. Yep.
Right. Like it's not the loss, it's how he looked in the loss.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I really thought, and actually you and me and Bobby had this conversation in the Discord, happened to be the 3 participants. I thought he just got thrown off the week prior by how good, and we'll move on to this conversation next, how good the 49ers defense is. I just thought like they can make anybody look like that, and he'll look the same again next week. I think that the Chargers are a good team, and he entered into a situation where the Chargers were in the worst possible position that you wanted to play them in. So I want to give them another couple of weeks, because they were a hit dog. Like they were hungry, and they needed to win to stay relevant. And that's the last team you want to play, especially with a guy like Herbert at quarterback. Like we already gave them their flowers on that win. I just think the Chargers came in hungry and wanting to win. And I think that the Dolphins might have hit a ceiling a little, but I would love to not write Tua off, just because I think they had 2 really tough games on them. And the Chargers game was tougher than it looked on paper. Like, I just think it was. Like, the Chargers lose that game and they were relevant, and they know that. And now they're still relevant. That's one game that could have determined one or the other. And I've been on the Chargers bandwagon since the start of the season. It's been disappointing to see them not be that good, but they're talented. They got a boast.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's not a joke. But speaking of Bosa brothers, time to move on to the San Francisco 49ers.
The hell of a segue.
What a segue.
Studs everywhere on that 49ers.
They're unbelievable, man.
Couldn't believe that. My first thought, being a fan of the NFL for as long as I have been, was Jimmy G's down. That's it. Their quarterback's gone down. I told them on the fucking podcast they're relying on too many guys that are too historically made of glass and take too many big hits, like the Deebo Samuels of the world. That man loves the middle of the field more than I would want any of my skill guys to love. That dude needs to learn to love getting out of bounds. He absolutely does. But at this moment, he does not. So he's a fucking study's great to watch. The Jimmy G goes down. They almost look stronger. They almost look like they rallied around each other. They have a defense that, and look, I mean, this is a theme. I fucking love defenses. I can't decide if I love the Cowboys defense or the 49ers defense more this season. The 49ers just have dudes everywhere, just studs. If you were trying to pick up a girl at a drive-thru in the 1950s and the fucking San Francisco 49ers showed up, you'd count your chickens. You'd go home. That'd be it. They got studs everywhere. And I have not given up on this team. I mean, despite Jimmy G going down, it's the kind of team where somebody just walks in and they look almost as good. And they beat this Dolphins team that we were high on. So, Bob, I mean, I almost wanted you to put them a little higher on this list. How are you feeling about the San Francisco 49ers? As a Cowboys fan, let me ask you this, just to start with a yes or no question, and then you can go into detail about them. You don't want to see this 49ers.
No goddamn way I don't want to see this team. I don't want to praise Purdy too much yet and say that they're not in trouble when it comes playoff time, but that was impressive. That was very, very impressive. I just think the way this team's built, the system, everything about it just lends to making it so easy for that quarterback to succeed. You know what I mean? You look at who they have, the type of offense that they run, and then plus, like you just said, that defense is one of the top 5 I've ever seen, man. Like
I can't decide. I've never had two defenses to choose from like this. Like, I love the Cowboys defense. I genuinely do. I hate their offense so much that it makes me want to like the 49ers defense more.
The 49ers defense is much more consistent. You know who's going to show up, and they're not giving up.
They eat as a family, right? Like, they eat as a family. Like,
exactly.
It's about their collective fucking performance. And I think you guys have more studs that show out on a given day. Like,
we're more bend don't break
a little bit this season, which I was a little bit disappointed of. And we'll get on to the Cowboys in a second, because spoiler alert, they're pretty high on the power rankings this year, but who makes them? Mike, Kyle Shanahan's a hell of a coach. He's built a nice team down there. I guess to start you off with an easy kind of low ball yes or no question, did Jimmy G going down, we know it was inevitable, but did him going down make them take him out of contention? I don't think so.
Out of contention, no, but I think, he has a lot of criticism, that's deserved, undeserved, whatever it might be. Jimmy G, like, the moment will not be too big for Jimmy G in the playoffs. We do not know.
It's a fair point.
We do not know how Brock Purdy will handle.
They lost a winner. They lost a proven winner.
Yeah, I mean, at NFC title game 2 out of the last 3 years was Jimmy G. Now, some would say that walking into a game as your first NFL start against the greatest of all time, like, that's tough. And all Purdy had to do was not lose the game. And not only did he do that, but he in the 3 throws that I had from that game, he threw dives.
Yeah,
and
here's the thing, right? It's like, you have sorry to interrupt you, but just to like really put a button on your point, I really agree with you, because you have I've come out of nowhere, I'm a backup QB, no one's game plan for me game, which we've talked about on this show. But then you have you're that, but that was a tough throw. That was a tough throw, and you made it. And I had a few of those with him. So please continue.
That sideline throw to McCaffrey for the touchdown.
Oh, bro. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you could only throw it where he threw it for that to be the end result. And I think 2 things. I think the moment this time wasn't too big for him, but I also think that what this shows us is that, Kyle Shanahan, he could literally insert any quarterback into this role right now, and they should, as long as they don't do terribly, they should still roll. I just wonder what happens in a playoff game, but. Christian McCaffrey, he's looking like the old CMC, but that defense,
the new old CMC.
But Dre Greenlaw,
he's unbelievable, man.
He's
Buafunga, whatever.
I think Deebo Samuel's my favorite skill player in the league right now. I like watching what he does after he catches the ball is a sight to behold.
Right, but on the defensive note, like, Greenlaw is everywhere. Every single play he's there. So yeah, this is a wagon.
So we're gonna drive home this defense real quick. So week 7 they lost to Kansas City. They gave up 44 points, right? Since that game, 14, 16, 10, 0, 17, 7. All wins.
That was the week I traded them to your dad.
Come on.
By the way, Bobby. For the Cowboys defense.
And now my dad's in the playoffs.
I'm playing. I might end up hoisted by my own petard there. But
that's absurd, though. You know what I mean? Like they played the best offense, the best team in the league.
That's a button on the point for sure. Let me ask you this: about this time last season, we were saying the Cincinnati Bengals could possibly make the playoffs as an outside shot. Why? Because make the Super Bowl as an outside shot is what we said. Why? Because they have some sort of pixie dust about them. If I were to take your pretty agreeable point that I don't really know why it makes sense, that Christian McCaffrey looks really good in that uniform. Like it looks like destiny
beautiful
in that uniform, right? If we were to take that, we were to say how they performed after their starting quarterback went down, and then after their second string quarterback went down, and how if we're speaking on technicalities here, how they're doing. Not a bad money bet, the San Francisco 49ers to make it to the Super Bowl, right? Because if you ask any God-fearing, dedicated NFL fan, since I have two of them here, if the Cowboys see the 49ers in the playoffs, I would put the smart money on the Cowboys, but you can see the 49ers winning. If the Eagles see the 49ers in the playoffs, you don't think the 49ers could win?
I think the 49ers not easily, but I think the 49ers win both of those games. And I think Bobby agrees with you too.
I do.
I think we should all put a little bit of money on the San Francisco
49ers. It's like what you just said, though, Bobby. They put up 44 points to the Chiefs. They're letting up 15.2 points per game this year with the 44 in there. That's an elite defense in a world in an elite now where it's all predicated on high scoring offense. So I think, no, I don't know if this is a hot take. I think you actually both will agree with me. I think defense shows up more in the playoffs and less in the Super Bowl. So this will be a team that could get there, but then I would just say, like, if you have, Purdy versus Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, he's not going to be able to sling with them.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's a fair and it's an interesting point. I think that it does lead us to our next topic, which is you said Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, and you did not say Josh Allen. So number 5 on the power rankings list is the Buffalo Bills. And I would just like to ask in a very simple way, Mike, since you brought up those other two quarterbacks, why are we so weird about the Buffalo Bills all of a sudden? They're still really talented on paper. What is it that's making them kind of not good or kind of not as good as we thought? What is it?
So
they're still winning games.
Yeah, they have all world talent. I agree. The games that they lost, Josh Allen, just has balls, and that team is gritty. And you lose to Minnesota, and before we knew that the Jets were good, you lose to the Jets. Now it's a divisional game, but then you lose to Miami. Their losses were really weird to me, and I think we'll find not to pull a Bob, but if
power ranking show, it's fine to pull a Bob here. We allow it.
If they blow the Dolphins out of the water this week, then they're back on track. But I think that they're just in this situation where the expectations for them were so high that 3 losses, 2 of them being to 2 losses in a row, and again to fucking Zach Wilson and Kirk Cousins. Those are the 2 quarterbacks that you lose to 2 weeks in a row. That kind of shakes your faith in them. But they're still the class of the AFC right now. But I just don't think, again, I'm biased. I don't think Mahomes loses 2 games in a row to Zach Wilson and to Kirk Cousins.
Bobby,
so that's one.
I see your point. Just to tennis racket it over the net to the other side of this, Bobby, are they victims of their own success? Are they victims of their own expectations? I mean, there's no real way tangibly you could tell me that they aren't able to beat any AFC team they see in the playoffs. They are. They still just are. They just lost a couple of weird games. Now, They lost a couple of weird games to teams in November. Like the games Mike is referencing, to the Vikings, to the Jets. These are when the air bubble teams are on high. There's still the Buffalo Bills. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the Super Bowl. Are they victims of their own success? Or do you see, Bob, a genuine flaw in this team that makes them not winners? Because I'd be surprised if it was Josh Allen, but maybe it's something else.
No, it's definitely not Josh Allen. I do think there's a little bit of victims of their own success, just because when you look at the rest of the NFL, this has been a really weird season. There's been a lot of games where a lot of teams that have it has been amazing. There no team. Well, like, they don't belong in the same field as this team, and they're competing with them. They're right there. I mean, you look at the Lions game on Thanksgiving. Like you said, Zach Wilson beating them. Like it's just weird games that just happen. And this team is 10-3. I saw a press conference with Josh Allen the other day that, like, they were going over all this stuff, and he literally goes, "Yeah, well, we just really don't think that your offense, has what it takes to win in January." Josh Allen just looks at him, goes,
Josh Allen, dude.
He just goes, "Okay,
trying to piss him off on purpose."
Okay, like what? Yeah. Well, they won the game. You know what I mean? When it comes down to it, you need to win every single Sunday, and I just have faith in Josh Allen. I do.
I think what you're getting at is a really good point. It's as long as the Bills aren't thinking the things that everyone's deciding to say about them, as long as the Bills inside the locker room aren't hearing the shit in the media, hearing dumbasses like us talk about them on a podcast about how weird it is, but we can't put our finger on it. As long as the Bills aren't thinking that stuff, they've accomplished their goals. They're getting to playoff football.
They've won 4 in a row. 4 in a row.
And honestly, their last 4 games are Dolphins, Bears, Bengals, Bills, right? Bills. Patriots. Dolphins, Bears, Bengals,
playing themselves.
Patriots. I was just really enjoying the alliteration. But those, yeah. So, I mean, I think they can beat their 2 divisional rivals. I think they can beat the Dolphins. I think they beat the Pats. I think that what's going to happen in the Bears game is the Bears are going to look like winning, and then they're going to lose. So our draft stock rises. Just
I told you that like week 5. That's the strategy,
your voice has been ringing in my head. I've been my whole outlook on the
just season. Enough to make them look good, but
make them look like they can win, and maybe some free agents want to come play. But yeah, no, you're totally right. I do think that we're gonna just anticipate a little bit of we'll know more, and that fun thing that we do when on January 2nd, New Year's Day.
It's my birthday.
Happy birthday in advance.
Happy 40th.
I was gonna say.
That's not nice.
I feel like that we'll know a ton about the Bills when they play the Bengals. I feel like the Dolphins, yeah, we'll know a little bit about them, but we can still sort of make those same sort of commiserations one way or the other about, the Dolphins are like Bills, the Bengals play. We have ourselves a fucking AFC race right there. Like, so we'll see.
That's gonna be a great fucking game.
Can't wait.
If you had to nitpick, right, which I that's my specialty.
Kind of what we do here.
Yeah, it's the deficiency of this team is that they don't have a rushing game aside from Josh Allen. And when is the last time that a team won the Super Bowl with their quarterback being their leading rusher and also obviously their leading passer? Like, it just hasn't happened. And so
I think it's a really great question. And I think that if there's any team that they should be modeling themselves after in Buffalo, it's not a team that necessarily rushed their QB a ton to win a championship. But if you remember the Steelers teams, and I'm not doing the Steelers thing, but if you remember the Steelers teams of the 2000s, they had a quarterback who was smart, made his reads really well, didn't have the same arm talent as the guys that were his current contemporaries in Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and the like. I guess at that point, there was points where maybe we were still talking about Philip Rivers in that breath, but not anymore. I think what you have to do for Josh Allen is you have to say you're a pocket QB before the play breaks down. But when the play breaks down, we planned for your options, right? You're hard to sack. You move around really well, but you can't. I mean, I even say this as a guy who has Justin Fields on his favorite NFL team. You can't put your quarterback's health on the line to the point of making him a running back. You just can't. Like it doesn't dictate long-term success. What dictates long-term success with athletic quarterbacks that can move is the fear the other team has of that QB actually scrambling, the ability to make a play work and not get hit if it breaks down. But also, you got to have an arm. You just do. And Josh Allen has one. So it's why I don't think this season is their year. But I think that if somebody realizes that if you sit him down and make him watch, and I know this sounds crazy, but I think you can see my point a little bit. Make him watch 1,000 hours of Ben Roethlisberger tape.
Yeah.
Right? Like 1,000 fucking hours of Ben Roethlisberger tape. And you make him into that 2.0, then that guy can win.
That's a great point.
Comparison.
Yeah, because if you think about it too, one of the hardest things to defend in the NFL is a scrambling quarterback. It's easy to defend
it's like those
a quarterback,
right?
But it's easy to defend an RPO. It's easy to defend a scheme run by a quarterback. But when you have all the coverage downfield, and all of a sudden this quarterback can escape out and get a 20-yard gain, like bro, there's literally nothing you could do about that.
Look at Rodgers in his prime, for God's sake.
Yeah,
If
that's
he
another
decided
one.
to take a jog down the field, you were done. Like he was going to get those 10 yards on you. He just was. So
yeah,
I think they have the ability to kind of split the difference with him. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think that the roster comparison is spot on. I think even if you just go back just a little bit further, like you look at guys like Nair. McNair was never a run-first quarterback, but he was someone that if he had to, he would.
He could kill you.
And the thing that scares me about the Bills this year is that Allen has 100 rushing attempts. Like that should never.
It's not healthy.
He doesn't like to slide either.
That means we'll just say that
him weirdly.
Let's say that 75 of those are designed runs. You'd like to see him somewhere around like 40 rushing attempts for like 300 yards and not 100 for 630. So
we're going to have the same conversation, I bet, about Justin Fields in 2.5 years, because I think Justin Fields, if he's treated the right way, he becomes unsackable. Like he's one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league right now. But if he has the vision, the pocket awareness, and the athleticism to get out of some ludicrous situations. And like I said, the last guy I saw able to do that to that level was Ben fucking Roethlisberger. Like if he was elite at anything, guys, he was elite at making a play after he should have gone down.
And that's so backbreaking to an NFL squad.
Oh
you know
God.
what I mean?
Like defense is like, fuck, we almost had it.
Right, we did it. Right, it was over. We had them.
I feel like the Bears have made plays. They've made games out of games on that exact thing that you just talked about, on plays where even Mike McDaniels on the sideline being like, stop
running.
It's this thing of like, I
was offended because he didn't take my advice. He kept running.
I like that guy. I do like that guy. He's one of us. He's a millennial. He's our fucking age, right? We're starting to see these motherfuckers. Like,
should we be NFL head coaches? Maybe we should.
Listen, I'll take the call. Right? I'll take the call. I'd like to see how this Bears head coaching scheme works out, but this time last year I would have taken the job. So we're moving on to the final four, which we'll do our usual thing. Mike, you remember, hopefully, the AFC NFC championship game.
It's worked out really well. The top four.
Super well. But I mean, there's ways around it if there is too many AFC teams in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the usual. I'm going to ask you guys your NFC pick and your AFC pick. I'm going to just ask for your answers, and then I'll circle back on explanations. I have a firm guess on what the first question's answer is going to be. So, Bob, Cowboys, Eagles play each other in the NFC Championship game. Who is going to the Super Bowl?
Cowboys. But can I just? I know.
Can you just elaborate?
Yeah, no. But before we get into that, I just want to listen. I understand the looks of taking it down to the last minute against the worst team in the NFL, because listen, it's inexcusable. You should have blown that team out of the water, 100%. But the lack of praise that Dak Prescott got for that drive at the end of that game. Listen, if that was, I think Booger McFarland said this. If that was Peyton Manning, if that was Tom Brady, if that was Aaron Rodgers, all these guys,
this is be good. I like
all these guys, it would have been the number one story of the week. I mean, look at that Tom Brady week where he made that comeback against the Rams. It was all anyone was talking about, the GOAT this, the GOAT that.
Yeah.
Listen, this dude showed absolute nuts of just steel on that last drive. You know what I mean? And to have that, I think was really the takeaway for me from this past week. I know what a lot of people are saying, but I loved that last drive, man.
I think that's completely fair. And I think that as a Cowboys fan, I think you should think that. I think that you should know that to be true in your heart. And I think that truth could bring you to the promised land. I genuinely think that if you know that about your team and that team shows out and gets you to a Super Bowl and wins it, you're right and you're credible in that correctness. And you should have that correctness. Here's what I think the rest of us saw. Okay. I bet the Texans to cover the spread.
Yeah. Who didn't?
And they did.
Right.
Because the Cowboys, I looked at that game and I went
14.5.
Layer 1.
It was 17.
So it was 16. I bet 16.5. I went layer 1. Oh, the Cowboys are going to fucking absolutely dog walk the Texans. Jesus Christ. To layer 2. The Cowboys could fuck this up. Right? So that's where I was. And I was right. That doesn't make you not right also. Right? It doesn't. But this is the issue with the Dallas Cowboys. And as someone who I hope you hear me on this, because as someone who has been week in, week out on your fucking side with the Cowboys, loving the Cowboys defense, enjoying following them, enjoying getting players from their team traded to me in fantasies as I got nothing to do at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday because of my eccentric freelance working lifestyle. I just want to make some fucking fantasy football trades. And I want Cowboys. I want their defense. I want Pollard. I want all these guys. I got Dak Prescott from Mike, for God's sake, just as my backup QB because Justin Fields is number 1 and he's a hell of a fantasy quarterback. I'm still right about them when I think they could fuck this up against the Houston Texans.
Of course they could.
So I guess the thing that kind of gives me pause, and Mike, I'm going to throw it to you on this one. Is Dak Prescott good enough to unshackle himself from the franchise bonds that are the Dallas Cowboys, the historic truths that the Dallas Cowboys really bring to the table? I want him to be, and I think if he played in San Francisco, he might be.
Oh, that makes me want to vomit just thinking about it.
Talked about in a little bit of a different light, and he might be bringing different things to the table. But that is a heavy jersey, that Dallas Cowboys jersey. It's a heavy jersey. And it's not just because their owner is often pictured in very compromising civil rights situations. It's more that there's something about that franchise that can't seem to get over the hump. Mike, am I hitting any bells at all here?
As much as this pains me to say, I think that even though he was hurt, this season has proved that Dak is elite. He can deshackle himself from the stigma that is the Cowboys over the last 27 years. I mean,
you heard it here first, folks.
He literally had nobody to throw to this year besides CeeDee Lamb. Nobody knew who the fuck Noah Brown was or Michael Gallup, even though Bobby said that it was the best skill position in the entire goddamn league.
It's completely talking out of my ass on that one.
Gotta do that sometimes.
I remember saying it, being like, I don't know about that one.
I was like, maybe he knows something I don't. I'm not going to argue with him. He's a Cowboys fan.
I think the thing that worries me about Dak, though, is that he has proven to be elite, but his moments where he kind of takes that step back and makes bad decisions always happen at the worst fucking time for the Cowboys.
Like the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not the one to say it, but yes. So yes, can he separate himself? Yes, I think that he's proved that this year. And are you going to ask me who I'm taking out of these?
Yeah, that was going to be it's a beautiful segue. Eagles play the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. Who are you sending to the Super Bowl?
Cowboys.
Wow, we really have no fucking. I think my faith in the Eagles has gone up the past 3 weeks.
It has.
Like I think that like for weeks and weeks they looked like that team that has Jalen Hurts as a quarterback that are obviously going to fade, but those other teams did fade and they didn't. I really do think they have just studs everywhere, and it's hard. It's hard to say. I would if so. You guys both are taking the Cowboys. If I'm being quite honest with you, I would want the Cowboys to win in the NFC Championship games. They saw each other. I don't think it's mathematically possible at this point. Same division, similar records. I don't think they're seeing each other in the NFC Championship game, but this is the kind of magical realism we put in, and I'm missing the point in the Power Rankings game. I would want the Cowboys to win. But at this point, I'm a little scared of the Eagles, man. I genuinely am. I think Jalen Hurts, I'm kind of done doubting that guy. Am I crazy?
No, this isn't so much of a I doubt.
It's more about the Cowboys. More about the Cowboys.
It's more about how competitive the game was when they played this year with Cooper Rush as the quarterback.
Fair point.
Even
though Dak can make that offense look worse than Cooper Rush made it look good, though, right? Like his floor to ceiling ratio is the issue I'm talking about.
No. I think Cooper Rush could make it work. It could make it look worse. But for whatever reason, I think Kellen Moore calls a more competent game.
No, sure. He just made it look a certain way. And I think Dak's floor is lower than that. The way that it looked with Cooper Rush in there.
But his ceiling is, just so much higher.
Win a Super Bowl. He's good.
You want to know why you're feeling more confident? Past 3 weeks, 44 points, 35 points, 44 points.
Yeah. So. They're going into the playoffs hot. You go in hot.
40 points, not 44. Sorry.
It's fine. You spotted them 4. It could have easily been 2 safeties later. Who knows?
At the risk of dragging this out just a little bit longer, could I just ask a question? With the Eagles, being 12-1 right now, and they're going to sew up the number 1 seed pretty soon. Knowing how much momentum they have over the last just 4 weeks, do you risk benching and sitting their starters to preserve their health, or do you play them to make sure that you keep the mojo and the momentum going into the playoffs?
You play them because they're going to have a bye week. You don't want them sitting for 2 straight weeks. 2 straight weeks is a long time.
Right. For me, the thing that I always think back to was knowing that Tom Brady shouldn't have played against the Giants in Week 16. I don't mean to bring that up in a shitty way. I remember knowing that to be true going into that game, and it turning out to be true. And I think that the idea of getting your team back in rhythm is more of a myth than obvious injuries happening. So there's got to be a way to keep you guys. I understand that both things are valid, but risk any of those skill players or Jalen Hurts going down.
Well, we saw this with the Colts when the Jets went into.
That was
and they beat them. But my real point is against, let's say that they beat Chicago and they beat Dallas, right? And then they're sitting at 14-1. They're the number 1 seed. Do you start do you play them against?
I don't. I genuinely bench them. I see your point, right. Bobby. I genuinely do. I really see.
It's a long time to sit.
I understand,
but 3 weeks.
Okay, so the way there's that weird extra week in between you winning your conference championship and going into a Super Bowl. There's that weird extra week that seems to fuck teams up. I feel like 1 week is survivable. 2 weeks fuck you up. 3 weeks gives you rest. 3 weeks is enough to come back around and be yeah, we're studs though. We're good. 2 weeks is man, I just kind of started to relax into my break. My body actually just started healing. 3 weeks isn't necessarily right off the bat worse to me than 2 weeks. It might be we needed 1 extra week because I just started thinking about shit. 1 week, I'm whatever. I'm just playing. I'm getting after it. 2 weeks, I'm fuck, man. I just started thinking about some shit. Are we actually good? 3 weeks, I'm re-confident again. I met my fucking teammates for a barbecue on last Sunday, and we had a nice chat, and we ran some good practices this week. 3 weeks off for a team as skilled as the Philadelphia Eagles should be scary for other teams, to be quite honest with you. You're taking a huge advantage of that bye week, and I think you should do it.
Throwing another wrench in, it's kind of along the same lines here. So Eagles aren't going to lose to the Bears, right? That's not going to happen.
No, I think they might.
You think it's possible? Okay. I would love that. But
I think it'd be a close game and the Bears decide to let the Eagles walk back in victory because we want to.
It's okay. Hypothetical world, we beat the Eagles, right? That means in those last 2 weeks, the Eagles could be playing for a chance at either winning the division and getting the 1 seed. And if they drop one of those last 2 games, they could fall all the way to the 5 seed. So
if they hit that tough of a slump coming into the playoffs, they're done for.
Yeah.
I think they're done for. You're not overcoming. Even if you do make it to the Super Bowl, you're not overcoming
that Cowboys game.
Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs team. All right, well, let's talk about the AFC for a second. Damn, this is heating up though. This is heating up. I'm really fucking enjoying this NFL season. This NFC is crazy. I don't know who the fuck is going to win the NFC. I do, however, have a sneaking suspicion for who's going to win the NFC. Bobby, I'll go to you first. And I'm about to do that. Here it comes. Coming to you first. Chiefs, Bengals. Who goes to Super Bowl? He's gonna say Bengals, guys. He wants to say Bengals.
I really want to say Bengals because
Bobby,
I'm gonna go. Listen, I am gonna say the Bengals because I'm gonna give you the same exact rationale I gave you last week. I will believe that Patrick Mahomes can beat Joe Burrow when I see it. Until that day, I am picking the Bengals, and history is on my side. So I'm going Bengals.
Mike?
Yeah, that's why I was kind of hoping that you would go to me first. Yeah, Joe Burrow has their fucking number.
Yeah, it's so crazy to think of.
And like we can talk about when we were on the show last year for the AFC title game. It's like, listen, if the Bengals just hold the Chiefs to 24 or less, are going to win this game, and then it fucking happened. Like,
who said that? It was that? Oh, that was you.
It's weird. I would never. I don't usually call myself, but I think that offense, for some reason, like I never thought I would say that, but I would bet against Pat Mahomes. But yeah, it's the Bengals too. Like DK, would you pick anybody different?
Yeah, no, I would 100% pick the Chiefs still. So, like, I mean, it's just like
I hear what you're saying, Mike and Bobby, but you're
no, I 100% do hear what you're saying, and all it sounds like to me, put through the filter of my dumb fucking brain, is like, wow, it's gonna be so much cooler when Pat Mahomes finally beats Joe Burrow, like, and it's gonna happen because he's fucking Pat Mahomes. Because he has Travis Kelce, because he's getting Juju Smith-Schuster working in that offense, because he's got 3 good running backs, and one of them's hurt, but the other 2 are still good all of a sudden for some reason.
Those 2 are good. Edwards-Helaire sucks.
I don't know if he sucks.
He's on IR.
He's on IR, so it doesn't matter. I don't know if he sucks.
It's like a real running back now.
Regardless, they have McKinnon, who's nasty, who had that sick Patrick Mahomes improvised.
Oh my God, that was so absurd.
It's so ridiculous.
He did it. He did it.
That's Pat Mahomes.
He did it in the most bullshit. I don't give a shit about this toss way ever, and it was so perfect and so amazing. It was just like, dude,
he's just that guy. He's that dude. And I will. I spent so long, guys, growing up in New England, going, "Yeah, okay, Tom Brady, you can't blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, Tom Brady, you can't blah blah blah." I'm sick of it. I can't keep coming out on the, and now that we have a fucking podcast we produce every week, I can't keep being the guy that's just wrong about greatness. I learned my lesson in my teens and 20s. Don't bet against the guy that's as good as Pat Mahomes is. Pat Mahomes is about to be the best quarterback in the NFL for the next decade.
But what about if other guy that we're talking about has already rattled off 2?
I love Joe Burrow. I love Joe Burrow.
Is it 3 straight victories?
3.
I love Joe Burrow so much that I'm going to make a point to you right now. I've been on the fucking PR show, on random 617 shows that we've done, on every chance I've gotten to talk about the NFL this season. I've said, Bobby, back me up on this real quick. I've said, you should not be putting Josh Allen in the same conversation as Pat Mahomes. That's insulting. It's crazy.
Yep.
I said at the start of the season, the conversation is Joe Burrow and Pat Mahomes. That is the conversation. That is Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. That is where we are. My wife turned around to me week 3 of the NFL season and said, this is where, by the way, spoiler alert, this is where I got this take. Because I was listening to Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels and everyone be like, Josh Allen versus Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen versus Pat Mahomes. And Leah said, that doesn't seem like a fair comparison. Pat Mahomes is way fucking better than Josh Allen. He's won a Super Bowl. He's fucking steamrolled Tom Brady. He's done all the fucking things. It's true. Like, if there's anybody that has a conversation that's in the conversation against Pat Mahomes right now, who is objected to
Joe Burrow,
the NFL, it is Joe Burrow. Yeah. So I want to land on one side of that argument. I don't want to land on one side of Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. Maybe one day. Maybe he can Drew Brees or Ben Roethlisberger himself into this conversation. But the Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in this conversation, as of right now, you heard it here first, folks. Play this on ESPN because I don't think any of your fucking pundits are saying this shit. Is Joe Burrow and Pat Mahomes. And it's a fucking fantastic thing to watch. But God damn it, I want it so bad. I want it so bad because they're both winners. They're both duds. And I think Josh Allen is too. Don't get me wrong. And I think he could be involved in this conversation. But as of right now, I think those are the two guys. There's a 101A. So I'm sending the Chiefs. You guys are sending the Bengals. I'm sending we're all three of us. I'm sending the Cowboys. I gotta write
Just
this
like
thing.
4 weeks in a row and a stress.
No, I gotta send this.
So stressful.
I understand that you're sure I'm with you, but I'm with you this year, buddy. We're here. We're writing it out. So, Mike.
Yeah.
Your Cincinnati Bengals are playing
Yeah.
your Mike Marcangelo's Dallas Cowboys. This is your Super Bowl scenario.
Yeah.
Who's taking home that Lombardi trophy?
Bengals.
Oh my God.
And
Joe Burrow's year, guys.
Yeah. I mean, as good, again, this is just my belief, and you can go back and look at the previous Super Bowls, but the defense is usually mitigated for whatever reason or another in the Super Bowl. So I think maybe it comes down to the quarterback.
I remember 2000.
And the quarterback, and if you had, again, Bobby, before you go, you had to pick a quarterback to win you a game in the fourth quarter with 10 seconds left, Joe Burrow or Dak Prescott. You are not picking Dak. You're not doing it. You're not. So it's the Bengals.
Poor Bob. Okay, let me ask you this, since we're getting closer and closer to the sort of the drum line here. You're picking the Bengals to beat the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Give me a scoreline.
28-24 Bengals.
So I was thinking, like, I would think if the Bengals saw the Cowboys in a Super Bowl, it would be like 17-7 Bengals. Does that make sense? For reasons?
Yes.
That would be the most fucking frustrating game to watch ever.
It makes sense for reasons,
Bobby,
right?
just wait.
Because you know what? You know why it's so frustrating? Because I can literally picture how that would happen.
That's what I'm saying.
Bobby,
That's what I'm saying.
I say 24 Bengals, and I think that the Cowboys are up like 21-3 in that game, and Burrow goes back.
Oh my God, this is getting mean.
No, it's not. But look, he did it against Mahomes.
I can't witness Bobby. I can't.
Twice.
You would have to fly to New York to make sure he doesn't fucking commit a sexual assault on a 9mm. This team would fucking legitimately kill himself if they blew a lead like that to the fucking Bengals in the Super Bowl. That would I couldn't witness it.
I promise you, like, Bobby, you're gonna believe me. But that's not an indictment. Like, that's not an attack on you, or really even an indictment on the Cowboys. That's just Joe Burrow. That's just what he does.
It could happen. Okay, so Bob,
sorry.
The Cowboys are going to in your scenario, Bob. Forget all that, dude. Shake it off. You're Rocky. It's the 9th round. You've caught your second wind. You're gonna come out and you're gonna put on a good show against Apollo Creed here. All right. The Cowboys have seen the Bengals in your scenario in the Super Bowl. Who's winning and why? And like, find your center here. Who's winning and why?
I think the Cowboys win. I know.
Mike,
crazy.
Crazy.
I'm gonna tell you why. Because last year, what was the Bengals' final undoing? That offensive line. When the Bengals played the Cowboys this year, what happened? Burrow got sacked 7 times.
He loves getting sacked.
I just see best case scenario is 5 to 6 sacks, and it's like 21-13 ish, something like that. The only thing that scares me with this Cowboys defense is their rush defense. And that's the thing that's the least consistent. And I don't think the Bengals have the type of run game that the Cowboys struggle against. Cowboys struggle against outside zone runs. It's just a point in fact. And the Bengals love running it between the tackles with P. Ryan, with Mixon. So I think we could shut that down. I'm definitely picking Cowboys. I can't not. You know what I mean? Like my mind just won't let me.
Bobby, what I would just say.
I don't disagree with what you guys said. That's why I heard.
You guys haven't even done my pick yet. Fuck you.
Before DK goes, what I would just
you
say.
You said 17-7.
No, I'm saying that could be a realistic scoreline. I can see the Cowboys pulling that off for you. So I'm saying.
In that game, when they met this year, when the Cowboys sacked Joe Burrow 7 times, The Bengals were down 17-3 going into the last 2 minutes of the third quarter, and the final score of that game was 20-17. Like, so he still did it. He still almost fucking did it. I'm just saying.
No, I mean it's tough.
Horseshoes and hand grenades.
No, I don't know if that applies here. I think it's tough because I don't want it to be true, but I can see it being true. But here's what I think is going to happen otherwise. I think that it's not going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. I think it's going to be, like I said, the Kansas City Chiefs. So I got to write on that. I think it is going to be the Cowboys. Secretly, I think it's going to be the 49ers, but it doesn't make for as entertaining as a conversation here. I think it is going to be the Cowboys. And I think that despite losing inevitably to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the Dallas Cowboys learned some stuff from losing to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Yay.
I think they come back in as the definitive number one team on talent in the NFL the following season, even if they don't quite do as much to win.
It's worked out really well for us in the past, so I can't wait.
No, fair. I just think that, and I'll do you one favor. If I changed my pick in the AFC to see the Cincinnati Bengals come in to play the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl, I would love that. I think that would be awesome. I think, like I said last week, if that matchup happens, or even if the alternate matchup happens, we've seen a lot of great playoff games coming into that to make that happen, right? Like to see the Dallas Cowboys go through the NFC and inevitably have to beat the Philadelphia Eagles to make that happen. That'd be a great game. Like it's not going to be a foregone conclusion. It's going to be a lot of entertainment and a lot of content on this podcast. If the Bengals see the Cowboys in the Super Bowl, I really do believe the Cowboys have it. I genuinely believe the Cowboys have it. It's not because Joe Burrow's not sick. It's because they have not protected him, and I think you're totally right about that. They haven't protected him. He doesn't have guys that can keep him alive for the next 10 years. So, for the sake of Joe Burrow being as good as we seemingly all think he is, I hope some fucking guards try out for the Bengals next year. But like we talked about, if you can rush 4 and you can get pressure, you're a good defense. They will sack Joe Burrow 8 times in the Super Bowl if they play each other. That is a fucking fact. Mm-hmm. And all Dak Prescott has to do is go be a goddamn elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl. So, for better or for worse, we parsed out this fun little top 10. We've done some cross-offs. We've laughed. We've cried. We've seen the end of time and touched the end of the universe. And guys, I can't wait to be back together to talk about next week's NFL Power Rankings. Thank you so much for joining us, for the real BK Bob Kelly, for Michael Marcangelo, for myself, DK Sizzle, and Missing the Point, brought to you by the Winner's Edge Podcast Network. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week when everything will be different. Have a good night. That was great.